Good morning to everyone here, and good afternoon to some of them who are ahead of our time zone. My name is Manish Paluja. I am the Director for Cloud and Automation in HP Software. I'm based out of India, and I am joined by Naveen Chhabra, who is the Cloud and Automation Architect based out of India again. And he's been part of HP Software for a very long time, so he has a great amount of history with him in terms of technology and understanding of HP Software portfolio. And we would be today covering HP IT process automation solution, which is christened as Operations Orchestration. It's actually a very artful Maestro in our data center today, and hence we have kept the title for today's webinar as Operation Orchestration being a Maestro in your data center. So today Naveen will present, he's being the leader for Vivid Chapter India, and he would take you through the entire operation orchestration's capabilities, functions, features, and some of the very important use cases. I would greatly encourage you all to put any questions if you think you would want them to be answered. You can list those questions here, and we would be more than happy to answer and respond to you. Okay, as a part of housekeeping, just note that this session is live and is being recorded for the reference later on. We would have a session of questions answers. You can either type the questions on the questions pane. We can address them if you want them right in between, or we can take it at the logical end of the webinar and address all the questions at one point at one time. Okay, so just to familiarize you to the, okay, so you guys must be familiar with the webinar control panel. You can use the window, toggle view window between your full screen and window mode and put your questions out there. So with this, I think I hand it over to Naveen Chhabra to take you through the entire presentation. And me and Naveen would jointly take your questions and respond to them at the end of the webinar. Thank you very much. Naveen, over to you.
Hey, Manish, thanks a lot. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And it's my privilege to take up the session on HP Operations Orchestration for all of you today. And thanks a lot for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us for this discussion today. If I were to just begin, with the trends we see in the market today, and I'm sure given the roles you would be serving in your organization, be it IT, technology, or a business role, you would also be getting to see all the trends which are listed here, which is around the big data, the mobile, and the cloud, which is on a path of greater adoption in the marketplace today. So in your respective roles, you would certainly see those, but the point is about how does these trends in the market today impact the operations of the IT organization, and what are the things which are kind of possibilities for the IT staff to take up to ensure that they're best geared up to manage the challenges which would come up in the years to come. So from these trends perspective, if you just look, it is best represented on this slide as well. From data perspective, the explosion we are expecting is in the next 6 to 7 years. By 2020, it's actually going to grow 50 times. So even today, while we are sitting on a huge set of data which we classify as big data today, if that grows 50%, what is it that the IT management would need to do to ensure that it is managed well, right? According to the second trend, which is around the mobile, according to some research done by IDC and the others, the estimates are that the mobile devices would reach anywhere close to 50 billion devices which would be connected to the internet. Similarly, the third trend which shows up here is the cloud. As we know today through various surveys, 75% of the companies, the organizations in some form or the other are actually using the cloud-based solutions, and it is expected by 2020 that this number will hit 100%. Now, while these are trends, how does it impact the IT organization and the business alike? It certainly puts up a lot of impact in two aspects if you were to bucket it together in terms of complexity. Complexity of the infrastructure which is being built, which would be made available to serve these three trends which we just talked about. While the complexity of the infrastructure increases, the operations, the IT operations which are around that infrastructure are also expected to go up. It is also kind of shared in this slide in form of the graph. It is actually going to the cost perspective is actually going to grow multifold in comparison with the complexity growth which is expected to happen. Now we may also look upon in retrospect, we are not far away from the year 2020 where the explosion in these three trends will actually take us to a state which we look forward to manage in that time. But if we were to also retrospect in the current state of the data center today, we would find that in the last 3, 4, 5 decades, the IT organizations have actually amassed a lot of technology in terms of the data center elements which are classified as the servers, server infrastructure, be it a physical or a virtual, plus also the storage and the network, which are the prime elements of the data center. And then also come up along with it are the applications, the databases, the web services, which actually sit on top of this infrastructure and which are being used by the customers, the employees, and the partners alike. While we have plethora of technology adopted, various technologies, it has created a heterogeneous environment in the organizations. When we look at the teams which are actually managing that environment, there have been a silo of IT teams and infrastructure, which is depicted here in this slide. The teams are classified as the application team, the security team, so on and so forth. And the moment we talk about these teams in the IT organization, we for sure know that we are talking about the IT silos which have actually grown up with the growth in the IT organization. We also look upon the way the IT organization would be interacting, communicating, and coordinating the tasks or the projects with the consumers and the users or the business side of it. There are actually many moments when manual interconnect happens, manual handoffs would happen. And at the same time, for the IT organization to take meaningful actions upon the infrastructure, they would be actually using many point tools which are in no way interconnected, which are in no way talking to each other to provide a meaningful service view. Hence, adding upon to the cost and the complexity in managing the data center infrastructure. This is also highlighted with the statement that the siloed operations management is actually time consuming and is error prone. It becomes error prone because there is no standardization or a standard operating procedure if the defined infrastructure elements have to be managed. I would also like to highlight upon this fact, which has actually come out after a study done by ITC on behalf of HP. It highlights that the IT management cost as part of the data center IT operations cost is actually on the uprise. It highlights about the cost, the percentage of the cost which was in the year, say for example 2000, that actually amounted to approximately 38% of the cost, whereas if we look in the current year 2013, the cost has actually gone up to 68%. Now if we were to look upon one of the earlier slides where we were talking about the three trends and the growth expected basis those three trends, we can very well predict that the cost, if the cost curve continues to go up, it will soon hit up 100% of the cost, as in terms of the IT operation cost would only be accounted or taken up by the IT management cost, right? Whereas if we also look upon how the business teams would be wanting, the business is actually looking upon innovation, the newer projects which can take an organization to the next level of competence, as they also see the competition in the marketplace increasing, and IT is an enabler today when it comes to organizations competing with each other in the marketplace. So how would business view or would want the IT organizations to be performing? And this is the last the research conducted by ITC. They've also called upon responses from the participants from the business team in terms of what are the priorities those business people and the IT executives would be expecting in the years to come, and this is where it is highlighted in terms of the on this slide. The business and the IT teams are actually looking forward to, as part of their projects next, they're looking forward to reduce or eliminate the manual handoff, which may happen basis the current deployment, the current architecture which is put in place in the data centers. They would want to actually reduce the amount of errors which happen because of whatever nature, because of the manual nature of IT management execution. Here is an interesting point I would highlight with the numbers which are also which have also come up after a recent study. As we all know, virtualization is a known concept in any data center, but virtualization sprawl is actually also a known element in the data center. It's an element which has come up after the adoption of virtualization, and one of the research shows that there are approximately 87 million virtual machines currently on the planet Earth, and to manage the virtual environment there are approximately around a million administrators who are experts on virtualization technologies. So this kind of gives us a ratio of 1:87, one administrator kind of managing 87 virtual machines. And if you look at the kind of explosion in the virtual machines which may happen in the years to come, would the IT team be able to manage this kind of a ratio, 1:87? Probably no, and hence one of the objectives the IT executive team is running with is to improve staff efficiency. How could that happen? is what we would look upon in the slides to come. The other element is around bridging the silos so that the tasks are done more efficiently with less of downtime, less of issues and errors, and consolidate in terms of the number of tools or the kind of tools which are being used for IT management. One of the elements which can actually help in achieving these objectives is simplification of the data center management by leveraging the power of orchestration. And the steps to that are very simple. As we see and we have seen many of our customers leveraging, adopting the best practices and implementing that within their data centers, is first and foremost is around automating those mundane tasks which are otherwise too time consuming for the IT management staff, and which actually makes them bogged down with the storm of those mundane tasks, if you will. And then the next in line or the element in the maturity curve is around orchestrating the processes which are taken up by the IT staff to manage their data centers. Now we may think through, why are we using this term orchestration and what does it mean for us? Many of you may already know, but to bring everyone on the same page and have a common definition across all of us, I have put this for our understanding. It says that orchestration is the coordination of the proper sequence of step of the processes based on best practices, so that automated IT operations and tasks are completed in the right order and with the desired outcome. To address the requirement and the kind of challenge, the HP's solution for this is HP's Operations Orchestration. And for all of us to know, HP Operations Orchestration is it's a general IT process automation tool which is used across multiple use cases, ranging from integrating the monitoring tools, the service desk tools, and the virtualization and cloud management. We'll soon look upon few of the use cases which can be quickly put to use by you yourself in improving your efficiencies, reducing the number of errors which you may otherwise face without any orchestration or an IT process automation tool. Just to also highlight the maturity and the adoption of HP's Operations Orchestration tool vis-a-vis the other tools which are available in the marketplace, you may look here that it has been rated both by the consumers as well as by the analysts as the best tool to be adopted across IT process automation objectives. For us to move further and be able to communicate on the use case perspective, I have put across a couple of use cases which can actually help us understand the benefits, the capabilities, and the values which operations orchestration can deliver. Here is one, and this also kind of ties up with the challenges which we may otherwise see if there are no automation tools or the orchestration IT process automation tools put to use. Any large organization, any large IT setup, we know that in monitoring from a health or a fault management perspective, we may see that there would be thousands of events or incidents which may be coming up for the IT management team, IT operations staff to be precise, and they would face up thousands of events to kind of take action upon, right? And we know for sure that it's simple mathematical calculation for us to derive any increase in the number of events, keeping the same management staff, any increase in the number of incidents per unit of time will actually result in increased mean time to repair. And this is contrary to what the business would actually expect out of the IT teams. The IT team, the business teams are looking at reducing mean time to repair, and they are looking at increasing mean time between failure. How do we help how do we help the business achieve both these objectives of MTTR and MTBF? And at the same time, the other challenge which we face upon is management of the cost, right? Dependency on the senior experts like the L2, L3 staff to remediate the challenges or the issues faced up on a day-to-day basis in the IT management arena. So if we look at the challenges which typically come up, many of those are known errors, if you will, right? And for all we know, we have standard operating procedures which are typically the procedures which would be followed up to remediate those problems or the issues which come up in the regular day-to-day IT management. So what typically happens is also listed here, right? It is about capturing the incident, finding out what the root cause of the problem is, identifying which of the elements, which of the incidents are critical in nature, right? Logging or creating a trouble ticket, an incident in the help desk tool, and then executing the changes which are required to remediate those incidents, those failures. These are the typical steps which are done by the IT team, and majority of these events or incident management could actually be put to an automated execution using the power of orchestration. Now, we may also want to look at what value actually is delivered by the usage of these orchestration or the automation tools. It is very clear about about the dollar savings which can actually happen in a large IT environment, and also it helps reduce the number of errors, the issues caused by manual operations. Those can actually be simply wiped off from the IT management perspective, right? And it can also help reclaim those number of hours, hundreds or thousands of hours, which the L2, L3 staff would actually spend on identifying the issues and remediating those issues. Consider the scenario where you have absolutely everything being done manually versus a scenario in which majority of the events which happen are triaged and picked up by an automated tool, are executed upon basis the standard operating procedure which has been defined, thereby increasing the amount of valuable time which is available with each and every level of the support staff, and they can actually work on the strategic projects rather than just keeping the lights on within the data center. And this has actually been put to use by many of our customers, and two of these references are here in front of you. In one case, the MTTR has actually been reduced from 2 to 3 hours down to just few seconds. And this is one of the elements which I was talking about in the challenges section, that business is looking to reduce the MTTR, increase MTBF, right? And similarly, there is an investment bank which has actually been able to leverage the power of orchestration and improve the number of alerts which have been handled automatically, and thereby resulting in a huge saving for the bank, which is actually to the tune of around $5 million. So let's also look at how would this happen. How would a typical incident management happen with or without orchestration? So I'm sure you are very well aware of the process, the methodology which happens, right? There is a storm of events which are actually collected at daily on your incident management tools. The incident management tool would do the correlation, deduplication, and prioritization of those tasks, with resulting into a fewer number of actionable events which are available for the IT staff. Now, the IT staff, according to this picture, would be focusing upon approximately 5,000 events rather than close to 70,000 events, drastically reducing down the number of events which the IT management staff would have to focus and act upon. Now, if there is no automation or orchestration put to use, the tier 1 operators or the L1 operators would actually start connecting with the impacted elements in the IT and would be running and looking through multiple GUIs to identify where the root cause of the problem is. All this activity impacts the service availability time. It impacts and it results in the delays. And if the delays are beyond the comprehension of, say, for example, the L1 operators, they have to escalate and reach out to the L2 or the L3 staff for these events to be acted upon, thereby increasing the amount of time which is taken up to remediate a particular error, right? In contrast, if we were to look at the number of events which are deduced after the correlation, deduplication, and prioritization, say for example, the number of events remain the same, but if there are standard operating procedures put up in an orchestration tool, and the orchestration tool can actually start executing and remediating those problem areas all by themselves, we would see many of those issues getting remediated all by themselves, resulting into the services being available much faster, much sooner, and with no manual intervention, right? We could see the services to be available in seconds, right, rather than waiting for hours together. And this was also highlighted in one of the customer reference which I put across in the last few slides for you. Here is the second the second use case, if you will. If we were to focus upon the use cases which an orchestration tool can actually serve upon, right? If we look upon the recent times, the dependence of business on IT is actually just ever growing, and it is growing exponentially. Now this simply means that business is coming more often with their service requests to the IT team. Now the IT team, while it is challenged to keep the lights on with, you know, approximately the same staff, but the number of the business services which they are running in the IT is growing, right? So we look at, on one hand, they have to keep the lights on the other hand, they are also getting increased number of requests every day, every week, and every month, and so on. right? And majority of even the large organizations, IT organizations today are depending upon those manual manual execution across building a service, deploying a service, and managing a service, right? Now, uh, there is another element of the IT expansion, right? If we look upon the trends in the recent past, the IT teams have not been growing to the scale the business request to the IT team has been growing, right? And all of these have been highlighted here as the areas of the challenges which the IT team faces by themselves every day, right? Now, if we were to, on same lines as we discussed the last use cases, if you were to look at how orchestration could actually help the IT teams in serving the customers faster, the business teams faster, and also be able to keep the lights on with reduced IT management cost, right? The solution of orchestration actually comes in very handy, which can tie up multiple elements of the data center, multiple management applications within the data center, and be able to serve the business users with their requests which are coming on in an urgent manner, which are coming on with increased frequency every now and then, right? Let's look at some of the use cases or some of the reference examples here. I would discuss these both again in details in the slides to come. For us to quickly refer here, IAG Insurance, which is one of the largest insurance companies, have been able to reduce the number of man hours which are required to build newer services for the business. So if we were to put into action and understand how would typical service request would be handled without orchestration and with orchestration, and where the difference is brought up by leveraging orchestration here, right? Consider that the business user comes up with a request to create a new SharePoint portal for them, right? For them to build up a collaboration engine within their project team, say for example. If we do not have any automated service build-up procedure, right, the IT team would take up this request, would start building up each and every element which is required for the service, SharePoint service here in example, and then all those teams, IT teams, excuse me for that. And all those IT teams would then start connecting with each other in an absolute manual way to deliver that service back to the business user. And we know that all of this could actually result into an execution which is to the tune of hours or days together, right? Which is not in line with the expectations of the business users today, and the business users are actually expecting just-in-time class of service, right? I come now and I should be able to get the service immediately. This is one of the element which is making the cloud-based technology so prominent in today's times, right? So let's look at it here in a typical service request where an orchestration or an automation engine is put to use. You build up a service catalog. Say for example, the IT team builds up a service catalog for the business users, and the business user, whenever they need any specific service to be provisioned, they just get hooked onto that portal, identify the kind of services which are available, pick up a service, and press the submit button after identification of the right class of service which they need. Just assume that if you have the capability of self-implementation upon the hit of the submit button, right, and all those management tools, be it a management tool for virtualization, if it comes to VM provisioning, storage provisioning, network provisioning, application provisioning, and so on. And the orchestration tool is actually tying all of these together, right? Is picking up the right gears with the right speed at the right time for the service to be built up and to be delivered to the consumer whenever wanted, wherever wanted, right? Resulting in number one, the business satisfaction, the satisfaction at the end user level. Number two, freeing up a lot of time from the IT management staff from the mundane tasks they were to do otherwise in building up that service, say for example in this use case. And the quality of service which is being delivered, because there is no manual intervention, there is a standardized approach to delivering a particular service or the class of service. The quality of service delivered hence would also be much better and acceptable for the business teams. So this brings me to the next section, which is around how have our customers been able to leverage the power of orchestration for their the challenges which they have been facing. It is either in the area of service improvement, service delivery, or in the improvement area of keeping the lights on, managing the services which they're running. Right. So here is an example of this customer IAG, the Insurance Australia Group, which has been able to reduce the amount, the money to be spent in building up newer and newer automation capability or the orchestration capability within their data center. So they had actually built in an automation tool, a tactical automation tool, by using a non-HP application, I would refer here, a non-HP tool, and over time they actually realized that the automation could actually improve their efficiencies and delivery capability by many folds. However, they were limited by the number of or the amount of automation they could use using the existing or using the tool which they had procured. And while that was limiting, but their ideas were increasing, and this is where HP's operations orchestration delivered and was able to execute all the automation and the orchestration in their data center to deliver the savings and improve the efficiencies and the satisfaction on the user side. And here are the key benefits which this customer has been able to achieve. Number one, it's around the cost avoidance by leveraging the power of automation. Right? They saved to the tune of $264K. Right? On the second improvement, right? They had been able to reduce the amount of time required for software deployment. Similarly, reducing the amount of time required for security patch management, right? And this was done absolutely in a hands-off manner. The tool used here was HP's Operations Orchestration. That also brings me to the next customer, where the one of the benefit which they got out of leveraging orchestration, HP's Operations Orchestration, is in the improvement of the quality of IT services delivery, and this was one of the use case I was referring earlier. And the customer here is HCA. The problem they were suffering with was that HCA was unable to provide or provision the services for their customers as and when they wanted. And with today's mantra of services being available outside the corporate IT is very prominent, and how would the IT organization themselves be the right broker or provider of the services for the IT services within the organization was becoming a challenge. And this is where the HP's tools help this customer improve upon user satisfaction, be the services broker for their internal use was achieved. You know, those service capability were delivered. So the benefits, you know, I can quickly highlight for you, which HCA was able to get out, was around the reduced service deployment time from approximately around couple of months down to 90 minutes, right? Reduction in the amount of time it takes to execute the defined tasks or procedures, right? And most important for from ROI and TCO calculations is the amount of money spent versus the amount of returns the customer gets. And this particular customer has been able to realize an ROI within 3 months of time. Let me quickly relate back and refer to the advantages or the value which HP's operations orchestration could result in if adopted well within your organizations as well. And it is referred in this the 4 quadrants, right? It is number 1 around appropriate incident management and service fulfillment, and we have taken the use cases from this quadrant only, if you may relate to, right? But there are other areas which can which the customers, the IT organizations could get benefit in by leveraging the power of automation and orchestration, is the disaster recovery, right? So consider a scenario, consider a moment when the applications have to move from the data center to the disaster recovery location, and if all the tasks were to be done manually versus if the tasks were well automated, those were defined in the standard operating procedure and implemented in HP's operations orchestration, you could actually move the entire applications from the data center, from the DC to the DR location, if anything goes wrong, in a matter of minutes, improving upon your capability to deliver uninterrupted services to the business. Similarly, the other quadrant which is depicted here is application deployment. Just relate to the fact that if the business user, say for example, the application development team or the application testing team, they were to look for resources to either build or test their application, they would go through a hell a lot of challenge in terms of getting the right resources at the right time. So what typically happens is they start blocking those resources, right, which eventually adds up to the overall cost of IT organization, right? If you have those right tools to be able to deliver the applications to the application developer or an application tester as and when they want, number 1, you're freeing up a lot of resources. Number 2, you're reducing the amount of money and the time spent in building up the services, application deployment in reference here, right? And one of the other areas in which operations orchestration could help is specifically around SAP deployment, right? SAP needs a lot of activities to be done. SAP deployments need a lot of activities to be done on a routine basis, be it new functionality development, be it maintenance and management of an SAP instance. If it is done with orchestration, it could actually impact the service, SAP services to be number 1 available, number 2 to be back in serviceable mode in the least amount of time possible. Now, how is that done? Let us also look at that. It is done using the capability of HP's operations orchestrations, out of the box operations which are available. Now, let me refer and help you understand what an operation would mean. Say for example, if in the services management perspective, we want to identify whether a service is up or not, or we want to identify if a service element, say for example a server here or the application itself, is that available or not. One of the prominent example or one of the prominent mode to validate the service and the server availability is a ping operation, right? Now, if you were to write your code by yourself, script it and manage, right? You would write a series of code to execute a ping operation, right? And similarly other operations. If I were to relate that in HP operations orchestration, that ping operation is available in a drag and drop manner. Similarly, if you were to integrate with, say for a trouble ticketing or a help desk tool, right? If it were to script, it would take a good amount of time, a good amount of expertise from the senior staff, plus a good amount of management over the years that script is managed. Versus here in HP's operations orchestration, connecting with the help desk tool, say for example HP Service Manager, it's just a matter of dragging and dropping an operation. Okay, I hope I have been able to clarify what an operation is in HP's OO parlance. Now, the other benefit which HP's OO delivers is its capability to manage a heterogeneous environment, be it a proprietary operating system, be it a proprietary management platform, be it a proprietary storage environment, be it any business application or a service desk tool. HP's OO has the capability to interconnect, integrate, and execute tasks with a lot of heterogeneity in the data center. The higher the amount of heterogeneity, the higher the value and the returns of orchestration tools are. So one of the examples or the reference examples here you may be able to relate well to is TCS, one of the largest IT services organization. They have been able to impact the incident remediation and service provisioning with 200% efficiency gains, as they said, after using HP's OO in their data centers. I think in various forms or manner I have already shared the benefits, the advantages or the value which orchestration and HP OO can deliver. Here is a consolidated representation of that. It can help improve the time to value and can reduce the amount of money to be spent and the ROI by leveraging HP's OO. The other benefit or the value delivered is around improving the efficiencies by using the runbook or the typical tasks which are required to be performed in managing the data center, reduced amount of time in executing all those tasks and processes upon implementation in a fair way, right? And it is easy to manage by a factor of 3 to 5 times than any of our closest competitor. never to miss talking about the scalability of the solution, which it can, which HP's operation orchestration can manage. It can manage running anything close to 15,000 plus parallel tasks to be able to manage even a large size data center. It is content rich with 5,000 plus ready operations available, so that the IT management team just doesn't need to invent any of the operation, but those are already available as part of the library which they procure along with HPO. It's easy to use and being an undisputed leader, as is also highlighted by the research done by various analysts. For you to drill down and look further, there are a lot of demos, there are a lot of videos available on HP's operations orchestration on the web, on HP's website, which is also listed here for your understanding. And then there are a lot of customer testimonials available on various resources on the web. One of it is HP's website itself, and then the second is YouTube. I would highly encourage you to look through those resources for you to further build your understanding around the value and the capability which HP's operation orchestration can deliver for you in your data center. I kind of come to an end with that, keeping in mind the time which was allocated for this session. We have the last 5 minutes or so for any Q&A here. And Manish, do we have any question as of now?
I think we don't see any questions, but I hope you, Naveen, have you shared your email address in case you want? Okay, so I think in the absence of any questions, what we would encourage you to is that in case you have some query, you can go back and refer to the recording that we have with us. So, okay. The other important part before we close is that in order to have a live experience of the solution that we just referred to, which is operation orchestration, you have the facility of using trial license for 30 days, and you can have the taste of this solution within your own data center. And in that, in case you need any help, I think you can find a couple of videos around that as well, to understand how you can deploy operation orchestration and how you can use those workflows in your environment. So I think with this, we end this webinar today, and thanks a lot for your time today, and I hope you benefited from the content that was delivered by Naveen. So I thank Naveen and Anne for organizing this webinar for our customers. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
For your